For the Love of Rugby, brought to you by Blackheart. For those who ruck, maul, and never back down.
Viva la France, mate. Could have really done without getting the bonus point, I'll be honest with you. But they've kept the English dream alive. The dream is still alive for England. How good. Would have loved France not to get the bonus point. They have. I now need Scotland to treat France like they normally treat England, which means they produce one massive performance away in France. And if they do so, and England do the business next couple of weeks, woohoo, title's going home, mate.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just concentrate on what we've just witnessed, because I don't think there are many people in the world of rugby would have said before the game that France would go into Dublin and come out winning with 42 points on the board. And to be honest, the scoreline flattered Ireland at the end. I mean, they scored 2 late tries. But yeah, I don't think anyone would have given you that result at the beginning of the day, or beginning of the tournament, really.
Myself and Ant did the preview episode, mate, and we didn't think so. We thought that Ireland would get the job done. However, one area that we did speak about was about France's power game and the ability to gain line and play those forwards and then start offloading, get behind them. That was an area that we thought if France could do that, they may produce something. The other big sort of coin cost that we were unsure of was the France we saw against England, which don't want to dwell on, but like that performance, you didn't quite know were they old French, of like old, where they don't quite travel away. Well, mate, in typical French style, they absolutely turned up and they absolutely dominated. I didn't see that scoreline happening. And yeah, you can say that the intercept towards the end, but you could also say the last 2 tries from Ireland kind of flatters them, as you say, Coley. But mate, the way they hang in there, that first 15 minutes, the way that they just repelled Ireland, and the way that Ireland were going through the phase with that short attack that they try and do, because they don't necessarily have the power games. They try and play tight shapes and try and break you down there and squeeze out penalties, which they were doing. But France came up with some big plays at the first 15 minutes. That was held up over the line with Doris. They had a couple of jackals that they got. And then, mate, like second half, the power game and the ability to move the ball. And we'll talk about Lucu and how they changed their style, Coley. But mate, yeah, I didn't see it coming, but that was a seriously good performance by France, and it had to be. It had to be. And in many ways, you look at Ireland and you're kind of scratching your head, because it was just like, I wasn't really sure what was going on. Like I am, but like as in France, just the power they possessed, Ireland just didn't have the answers for it.
Well, the game was based on that first 15 minutes defence where France were basically stuck in their own 22. Ireland were throwing everything at them, and France just, well, it's the best we've seen France defend, but they weren't, how should I put it? It was a balance of, I think, Ireland were getting the ball to the edge, but France have got such athletes in Bielle-Biarrey, Penaud, even Ramos, that they can sort of like defend, they can be tighter and let Ireland get the ball to the edge, and then those guys are so quick that they can cover the ground like laterally. So Ireland do sort of get the ball wide, like Bielle-Biarrey and stuff will then, you know, they have the confidence to make the tackle on the edge, and also they've sort of big physical blokes, not a lot gets past them. And then secondly, when Ireland did try and go front door with the forwards, they were just, the French would sort of absorb it, then they just come at 1 or 2 shots that just drilled them backwards, like Predergast got it, I think, in the first half. There was another one where Ireland actually got a penalty because France got done for taking a man off the ball on a tip line, but McCarthy, Ireland sort of like big physical lump, basically ran into Aldrit and just got lumped backwards 5 yards. So that kind of set the tone, I think, the French, and just the ability to defend their own line, be physical. They got a couple of breakdown turnovers, as you say, which relieved pressure. And then when France did actually get a chance to open up, they did. But I say that was, I actually thought the French discipline in the first half was going to get them killed at some point, because they gave away a lot of penalties, some of which I was a bit flaky about. I think Dupont got done about 3 times in the first 5 minutes. But yeah, I thought that the sort of way the French actually got out of that sort of bump, because they could not easily got yellow carded, but you know what I mean, that could change the game there, and then actually went into half time ahead and took their chances. The one chance they should have got in that first half they took, and yeah, second half they just turned it on. Even after they went down, they conceded first play of the second half, didn't they, really? And then French just give them a sniff, they took it.
When I look at the Sage Insights, it shows that France made 196 tackles, Coley. 8 of them were being dominant, and the dominant ones they did have were like at key moments, whilst Ireland only made 97, and it kind of just shows you the difference, the that France put into their defensive set. And as you say, you could just see that Sean Edwards in them today. More so than I've ever, more so than I've seen for a long time. But they just looked really cohesive in D, mate, and physical. And Ireland were trying to, early on as well, they were running that arrowhead off 9. And then guys were trying to sort of quickly pick around the ruck as well, almost trying to tighten up the French defence. But France they're just really efficient around like the jackal, slowing it down, dominant collisions, and then not allowing Ireland to do that speed of ball. Because the biggest question mark for Ireland has always been the power game. And that's why they have such sort of a nice shape and such an effective shape in the way they hold on to the ball, and they draw out penalties from you. They move you about with the shape that they run, because they haven't got that front door power as such, and they have to try and create one-on-ones and get speed of ball that way through the little shapes that they run. Where France were just, like you say, Cole, a couple of guys got hit off the ball, but they were just lining them up and like ready for it, mate. And even Predergast, who's getting the ball out the back, he was getting, even when he took it to the line, Cole, you saw a few times, I definitely saw it, where they're hitting him, like making sure they land on top, like keeping him out for another phase, mate. So he couldn't like orchestrate that pattern. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's one of the, as I say, you saw that, I think the French forwards, that first 40 put in a big shift, and then, as I say, we'll talk about it later on, but the 7-1 split almost bit them in the arse. But the ability to bring on a front row at 50 minutes, you bring on a bloke like Miafu, who I thought was like, almost turned the game in that second half, and Jelonge to number 8, who was again another powerful guy. The starters could go for 50. You know, they could put in a massive shift for 40 minutes, have a break at half time, go 10 minutes, then France unload sort of 5 men straight away in the forward pack, and just more power on power. And that's sort of when the attack came to shine.
Coley, you spoke about the penalties. There were a lot, and France conceded actually 13 of them, whereas Ireland only conceded 6. However, it was like the manner of the penalties and then the consequences of the penalties that ultimately hurt Ireland. You know, 2 guys going in sin bin. Of course, France had a sin bin, but right at the end, that point the game was done. Just the magnitude of, France have doubled Ireland's penalty count, but in a way they were accumulation of all different types of pens, where Ireland's were like a pull back. I think it's Nash that gets a head on head, but they led to sort of big moments.
There were some daft ones from France. Like there was one just before half time where the second row is basically offside 50 metres from the goal line. It ends up with Ireland kicking 3 points. But yeah, the big turning points were, let's say, McCarthy's yellow card, which is daft. Like that leads to France's first try. And also secondly, I say Nash's head on head, which is, again, it's a yellow. There's no intent in it. And it's just a sort of, it's not even malicious. It's sort of unfortunate in some regards. But that allows, you play for so much against a team like France that has the power game that you get down to 14 men, they'll have the skill to punish you, and that's what they did. No, I thought Ireland missed, speaking of power, they missed James Lowe. I think he pulled out in the warm-up. Well, that's what the announcement said in the stadium. But he normally, you give him one-on-ones in the wide channels, I think he has the ability to be powerful, run over players and that kind of stuff and finish those tries, whereas I think today Ireland massively lacked him in the fact that they had Osborne, who I thought was sort of had a tough day at the office, against Bielle-Biarrey and Penaud, and that's sort of what I think, not saying it cost Ireland, but it shows how important James Lowe, I think, is to Ireland.
Yeah, Coley, James Lowe's a quality player, and I agree, they kind of missed him. They used Osborne as that left foot kicking option quite a bit, similar to James Lowe, but just they missed Lowe's cutting edge, sort of the ability to break tackles, be that extra ball carriers. Bundy Aki, to be fair, has to get through a shed load of work for them. But he was fairly quiet by his standards, and I think that Lowe can help him do that, and they obviously missed him. But I want to talk about the French try that led, of course, from the penalty of McCarthy. So they kick to the corner, and then they go to the maul, but the maul actually goes outside the 15-metre channel, 15-metre line, and they're 10 metres out maybe. And what France have done and what Ireland have done. So Ireland have set up with Nash as your first defender on the open side, and they've swapped with Predergast in the backfield. And then you've got Gibson Park on the short side. So you've got the maul that's gone past the 15-metre line infield. You've got in behind the French maul. You've got obviously Dupont behind the maul. Then you've got Entomac and you've got LBB. And with those guys, essentially they can swing right, where it'll go 9-12 and then Entomac out the back, the same shape that, of course, Elliot Daly scored against France with. Or they can go left. And because Predergast is stood in the backfield, he should actually come up and fill that space as a winger. Nash is on the open. He's in the backfield. He should get outside Gibson Park as soon as that goes past the 15. But you can see he's obviously not used to defending that. They were trying to protect him, trying to get him out the firing line from any back peels or anything like that, any breakaways. But he's got to go fill that space. Because he doesn't fill that space, it's an easy cue for Ntamack and LBB to go down that short side on the left because the space is there. Dupont gets out wonderfully. Pendergrass goes to hit Ntamack. But what Dupont does is like such a brilliant, like, I suppose, like weighted pass, and it kind of invites to LBB on the overs, just leaves it up into that space which has been left by Predergast. He should actually be there already, leaves it there. And like all great French teams, and we'll talk about the other try that LBB scores, the appreciation of where space is, they're so good at getting the ball there and just very well executed. But Ireland could have dealt with that a lot better. And, just shows at test level, like you leave a little crack like that, you don't fill in the space early enough, you don't get your coverage sorted, like teams punish you. And it's just like very well executed from Dupont and LBB in France.
Well, it wasn't a well executed try, but I think before that, you actually look at the change of possession. I think Ireland have a line out around their 22. They play back, and he's like previously used Osborne's left boot, and he bangs it long. But if you're going to bang it long against one team in the world, France probably ain't the ones, because I think Dupont catches it, basically on the halfway, sets off. He's got Ntamack outside him, who he sends the ball to. And then there's Ramos outside him, who there's LBB. They play LBB, and that's when McCarthy takes out Ramos, which ends up the yellow card, which gives France the penalty to then kick to the corner. I think France's maul, if you actually look all day, France's maul's been brilliant. And they do a lot of work with they kind of have a lifting pod, and they send a fourth man round to go behind the back lifter of a maul, which often gives them more power to go towards the post, which is why that maul basically goes, they're through to 15, but that maul goes infield, which obviously creates a bigger blind side for France to attack off. And I think you actually look at, I think the second and third tries France scored, basically they both came off mauls. Definitely one of them came off mauls. So, the French they basically had resisted Ireland for the first 15, 20 minutes of the game. Up to that point, they had one chance to strike, and they did, and punished Ireland.
I mentioned about Dupont's pass there for that first try, and of course he went off injured Coley. But Lucu, I've got to talk about Lucu and how France actually adapted. Now, if you look at Lucu last season, for instance, he played during the Six Nations. Dupont was away doing the Sevens, and he didn't no one could fill those shoes as such, and it didn't quite go his way. And I felt like today was like Lucu, the performance that you see him do at Bordeaux was the performance you saw today at France, which was a cannon of a boot. Like very, very composed player. Gets everyone else in the game. You know how I've talked already, Coley, about how much shape there is around Dupont. And there was an incident where Dupont breaks back right and he kind of throws this ball and it sort of doesn't hit anyone. But because there's so much shape and so much off him, everyone's sort of standing and waiting for him to do his thing before they kind of do anything. Where Lucu just is like that general of like getting out, getting others in the game, moving the ball, moving the point of contact. And what France adapted really well was they then started playing through 10 a lot more, where traditionally they've gone through Dupont, everything through Dupont. Ntamack just kind of waits till it's his turn, then he gets the ball. Where Lucu was moving it and they were going through Ntamack, and even Ntamack and Ramos are almost interchanging towards the back end of the game, and they were playing off 10 a lot more. So they were still hitting those arrowheads, those arrow pods off Lucu, but then equally they were going off 10 and they were getting 9 to 10, then hitting an arrowhead off 10. Then they were getting an offload or getting to the middle field. And I just thought, mate, his ability to pick the right options, his ability to bring others into the game between the balance of using his forward runners and equally getting it into 10's hands, and then an absolute cannon of a boot. I thought he slotted in and was pivotal. And you've got to say, we wish obviously Dupont a speedy recovery, but France, they needed him to step up today, and he absolutely nailed it. Like, he was really, really integral in terms of getting that performance and getting that win. I just thought he steadied the ship so unbelievably well, and I just thought they adapted to the way that they played traditionally with Lucu very, very quickly, and Ntamack and Ramos almost came into the game even more.
Ben, you don't have to sell me on Lucu. A, he's got a great haircut. And secondly, I believe I may have also picked him in the For Love of Rugby draft when he was my 9 in my team. So
he was.
I saw this a year ago, mate. But I thought he was, let's say, instrumental. I think, Dupont, that could have been a massive blow, especially with France's 7-1 bench. And with Dupont's great player, world's best player, isn't he? So that could have been a massive loss. But Lucu comes in. I mean, his boot, honestly, I think France's third try basically comes from his ability to bang long. They kick. I think Ireland kick off. They play a phase. Lucu gets it, bangs it 50 metres off the field. Then France pressure that line out, get the turn. I think Ireland then overthrow it. Marchand at the back gets it, and they play and end up scoring. But a lot of it comes from his ability to exit his own half. As people talk about France being, as they are, as you saw today, their ability of ball in hand to go. But when they need to get the fundamentals right of exiting their own half, I mean, there was a couple of ropey bits, don't get me wrong. The bit where Penaud, God, he is a fantastic player to go for, but there's a bit today where he's running back and he's jogging back.
Oh my God.
In the first half, jogging back, gets it. It's I'll run this out, lads. He gets tackled. He's then he's got to get done for holding on. He gets escapes. I think Doris knocks the ball in into touch, but it's just oh my God. And then later on, he's doing what he does, Penaud does. But yeah, no, France normally, their ability to be clean and efficient and use their nines can kick the ball a fucking mile. And they have that ability in your arsenal as a team. There's one with DuPont in the first half. I think he's on his right foot. He's basically getting charged out. He snatched it and he goes from his 22 to halfway. And you're it just allows France to play in the right areas of the field. And that's a lot of that today with the defence and just exiting their own half cleanly allows them to play the magic that they do, which I think is an underappreciated bit of France. The way France play rugby is you think about all the sort of razzmatazz, but actually it's the fundamentals of their game. They've actually got some brilliant kickers of the ball and players of the ball that do good things for them.
What it does as well, Coley, it pushes the opposition back so deep that, they can launch, but they only ever get to about halfway on it. And then the other thing, if you look at the contrasting kicking styles, and we've spoken about it before, about France always kick long, it's what they do, and they absolutely were a masterclass at doing it today, especially Lucu. But Ireland kicked short, and Ireland got some pay out of it sometimes, winning those contestables back, and they often went kick on kick. So they'd win it, maybe just shift it, and then just look to turn them again, look to turn France's backfield. But the thing is, even out of their half, Ireland will still go and kick to compete. And if you don't win it, and you are essentially still in your half, and then you're absorbing pressure again with France coming forward. And that's the sort of difference in mindset is France sort of don't take that risk and they bang it as long as you can, try and win territory. If you run it back, the closer you get to sort of halfway, where Ireland go to compete. And if you don't win the compete battle and you don't win it in the air, then ultimately the team's still camped in your half. So just a contrast in styles there. But even the try assist, Lucu with the ball out the back door, mate. But like I said, I thought France's balance of playing looked totally different when he came on. And it's like they recognised it. But equally, it kind of looked better in a weird way because it wasn't so off the cuff sort of stuff as DuPont does. And it equally brought those forwards in, especially last 20 minutes, mate, when they were getting into the middle of the field and just riding tackles, little tip balls, little offloads, and Intermac was getting out of the back. And that's when Ramos and Intermac were kind of interchanging between 10s and fullback and floating around. I was just very impressed with Lucu and given his sort of tournament last year where he kind of lost his position last year to Le Garrec back end of the tournament as well. So for him to come in and do that, I just thought he stepped up and fair play. He brought his Bordeaux form, which so many people, and we've seen it, Coley, so many people see to the national team. So I tip my hat to him.
Yeah, no, the exit, France, as I said about the blah, blah, blah kicking stuff, but France's second try, which the 7 ends up scoring, comes from Ireland's exit inside their own half. They kick contestable, ball bounces out. France end up with a line out inside Ireland's half. They then maul, quite successfully, they break out, play to an edge, and Peter O'Mahony, basically, there's some great interplay by the French, but Peter O'Mahony basically gets cleared out. He flops on the floor, trying to win a penalty, which is smart. However, the French then play through that hole. The loose head makes a great line break, offload out the back. Fellow follically challenged to Lucu, who follically challenged, gets tackled short of the line, and the 7 powers over. But that sort of came from the risk of going contestable inside your own half.
Do you want to talk about Peter O'Mahony? Because there'll be a lot of discussions about that, Coley.
That try ended up went to the TMO, I think, because that's the Nash headshot where he ends up getting yellow carded in the build-up to that, which then hurts Ireland to have 14 for 10 minutes. But also there's a bit of sort of controversy around Peter O'Mahony and the clear out on him. And I think, to be honest, the referee got it right because I believe the initial sort of contact on that clear out happens within a metre of the breakdown, and O'Mahony is going backwards. The bloke doesn't tackle him to the floor, wrap him, just basically dinks him with a shoulder. And O'Mahony, I think, probably was outsmarted himself and thought that if I flop on the floor, I'll get a penalty here. He did. Unfortunately, then France went through that channel and scored, and the ref decided that he was moving backwards, which I think, to be honest, was the right decision. I think if Omani tries hard to stay on his feet and sort of fights the clear out a bit, you go, and then got taken to floor, you'd be like, yeah, definite penalty, definitely clearing past. But because he almost gets hit near the breakdown, then sort of flops on the floor, and the Frenchman doesn't hit, like the Frenchman pulls out of it in some regards, you kind of think, yeah, play, you know what I mean? It's play on. I think the referee, to fair play to, made the right decision there. I did enjoy the bit where he's like, let me explain. And then I think the crowd started booing. He's like, let me explain. Almost like he was talking to the crowd.
Yeah. Give me a minute. I agree. Right decision there. Absolutely. I think if that's not given, like if you're France, you're like fuming. So right decision, fair play. I want to talk about LBB's second try because it was absolutely incredible, this one. And this was French at their best. Now, we laughed about Penaud running back in the first half and nearly getting caught. Well, this time, again, they sort of gets turned and he slides on it and just sort of lifts it up for Ramos, who's coming around the corner. Then Ramos does a little grubber kick because he can't quite get a full kick away. So he does a little grubber kick just up the tram line there. I think Osborne jumps on the ball, and as he jumps on it, then the counter-ruck comes in. So France are all advancing forward onto this ball, and they counter-ruck this ball. 3 or 4 must go into it, push Ireland over the ball. Lucu gets in there, gets the ball away to Miafu, who then does a brilliant sort of, so that's like unstructured, and he's just looking for his like drivers. So what I mean by that is any of your back 3 players, any of your 10s, centres, and he just pulls it out the back to Penaud, who was obviously just on the floor seconds ago, but he's come alive like all French teams do, absolutely sprung to life on the back of a turnover. So he plays it out the back to Penaud, who then like Ireland are all over the place. They're complete unstructured, right? Because they'd kicked the ball away in the first place. Then they'd regathered it, thinking they're going to launch an attack of that. Penaud's on like a 45, open up the pitch, goes between a little gap. And I've got to say, an unbelievable right to left pass, like finding his club teammate LBB, and then the absolute toe on him, like to take the outside like he did, like, you know, the amount of wingers that sometimes just step in inside there, but not everyone's blessed with the speed that LBB is. But he takes the outside, and then exactly the carbon copy of what we've seen him do throughout the tournament is this amazing little kick to gather, or kick to chase. He did one against Italy in round 3 where he did a little one, got it back and flicked it back inside to a player. But this time he puts it in field, grubbers it, uses electric pace, and actually Lucu nearly actually messes it up for him as they both go to score it. But LBB gets there, an unbelievable finish. And it was like France, it's the French try that you kind of love, where it's just totally unstructured, something out of nothing, and they've just come alive and they've punished you. Almost peak New Zealand-esque, where one turnover, one little mess up, and they go the length of the field, and you're like, how on earth they've done that? And I just thought that the athleticism, the pace, the agility, the ability to drop it on his foot and get to it, and then even the control, you know, like, because you've got to still have your hand in touching the ball the whole time, and he does. I just thought, what a finish, mate. Like, unbelievable finish from France, that.
Yeah, there aren't many teams in the world that have the ability, because you say, I think Penaud gets tackled basically inside zone 22, and normally a team would just sort of go, we'll just set a breakdown up and kick it off, but Ramos decides to sort of run it out. He sort of chips it down the touch line. They tackle Gibson Park. France, I mean, it's tough for Ireland forwards because we're going back to that breakdown, but Ireland just pile it. And it's inside their own half, as you say, they just sort of go pass, and then wingers come alive and just run from their own half and say it's a hell of a finish. But just there aren't many teams in the world that would sort of risk that, you know, running from inside their own half. And I think Miafu, you mentioned him there, his ability to, he's such a big man, but catch, pass out the back. Even I think even France's 4th try, basically the lead up to that, the kick through, basically, I think France played to an edge, come back. Miafu gets it, offloads over the top of, he's in the wide channel, so offloads over the top of the Ireland defender, and then France swing down the sideline and then kick it through. And it's just those ability of his touches. He's such a big man that he can play over you. You see him later on, he runs into Doris about 3 times and just flies over the top of him. You bring that off the bench, mate, and say he's that, but that sort of, that he encapsulates what France are about in the fact that he's power, but with just the ability to vision to run it from side to their own half, you know, him just putting it through the hands there, just that's what France are all about. And that's what, you know, when France are at their best, they are unstoppable.
And the more the France unleashed the bench and brought on that power, the more Ireland faded. And I was curious going into the game, would Ireland be able to make either France chase the game, But France didn't have to do that. Ireland had to chase the game. Could Ireland force France into chase the game? Could Ireland wear them down through their patterns, which we obviously saw in Marseille a year ago, and the way that they scored there? But Coley, I've got to ask you, you just mentioned him there, but the way that they scored their fourth try, and obviously it was a pick through the ruck in the end, but leading up to that, Coley, it was just wave of just power forward come around the corner. You mentioned Doris there. I mean, he's the Ireland captain. He was outstanding at the breakdown today, but guys are getting over the top of him. Guys are winning speed of momentum. If it's then Cyril Baez come around the corner, he's carrying, then the next one comes. It's like you can't stop it when it's like that. And Lucu's getting the ball away, and it's just like a wave. And that's where France just brought them into the power game, because it's all very well going for a 7-1 split, but it only works if you bring him into the type of game that you want to bring him into. And they were able to do that. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that, Colin, just what that looked like, because I thought France, it was tactically brilliant because they're able to bring him into that type of game.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the 7-1. I don't think France need to go to a 7-1 because I think they've got enough power. They can have a 6-2 or 5-3. They've got a front row they can throw on a 50. You have Miafu coming off. I thought all the second rows, so they were outstanding. Flamont, and then Jalonge at number 8 was, his first carry. I think they kicked it to him and he's run over. You have a fear that say Dupont goes down, another back gets injured, then you're going to be struggling. But that happened. The centre went off with the HIA, and Oscar Gigoux, who's normally a back rower, steps up, plays in the centres, and France didn't really miss a bit. He even kicked one through earlier, and he made tackle after tackle. So, just that ability of France to go back to the bench in the power game is to unleash blokes. And you see a lot of the power game. They're not a funny team, but because they're so big and strong and skillful, we've said before, off 9, they're on sort of 4 players. And there are times today where they hit the second man, Ireland's defence has to almost take a step because they don't want to create a dog leg by rushing up. So the second man tips to the third man, who then sort of can then make a decision and tip to the fourth man. But that, for a defence to sort of defend that, you have to be so in tune with each other, and you have to have 3 bodies, 3 or 4 defenders going at their man hard to win a collision. But you can't take someone out off the ball, so you got a defender, you got to sort of sit on your heels. And the French are so big that they can just almost fall on, they win that 1-on-1. They can take a step forward and win over the top. And there's one today where I think they go to pass to the fourth, who happens to be the loose head, who then, he's just constantly looking for that sort of shoulder offload, and they carry it, they get the corner, and then the 9s are playing away. And I think just that ability, the French power it's not often you see the French sort of take a 20-metre run up. You know what I mean? Some teams you see their forwards off 9, they go, right, take a 20-metre run up, they run in and they flatten things. Whereas the French almost just do it from a standstill, flat to the line. Almost they limit your ability to get off the line and come hard at you because they are sort of close towards you. And they just have the ability to sort of tip, or just even people like Aldrit, you sort of tackle them low and they just offload off the top. And the French, they just read each other so well in that regard. And I think everyone would want to play like France, but the way they play is probably in the way they bring up their kids and to play rugby on the rugby field. You know what I mean? It's not something you can just go, coaches go, let's copy that. It's so ingrained in what they do and how they play. It's almost like just a French way of doing it.
Yeah, their ability to recognise space and their ability to just get the ball there at any means possible. And you're right, Colin, they're not coming off the back fence. Sometimes they're so flat and they do like a little pirouette, pop it to the next one. There was another time where Ireland just held on, and I was like, oh my gosh, France were building again. And there was just like another wave of attack, and Ireland looked at 6s and 7s. But yeah, I was really impressed with that. We've got to mention, of course, Peter O'Mahony, Conor Murray and Cian Healy, of course, playing their last game at the Aviva, Ireland legends. But nice to see Cian Healy get a try at the end of the game. Not that it counted for much, but it was good to see all those guys get the recognition and obviously get the moment, because they deserve it, being absolute legends of the Irish game.
Oh yeah, so they're all, what they've given for Irish rugby domestically and internationally is, it's almost like a golden generation of player, and they've been through, almost started the whole Ireland role of being one of the best teams in the world. And so yeah, I think it would be sad for them that the game was lost. But I think, credit to, let's say, Conor Murray and Cian Healy coming off the bench and adding to it, and Cian Healy scores, which is probably a very fitting way for him to go out, and the fact that he scored loads of tries for Ireland. And yeah, it's it's sad for them to go out on a loss, but if you're going to lose to one team, France in that form, you can probably hold your hands up and say, yeah, it was an all right game.
I think they put away most teams if they produce that type of performance. Like, I do look now at Ireland, with those guys now calling time on their career. There's other few older statesmen in there. Have Ireland peaked? And I don't want to sort of just chucking around like just to get sort of a debate going, but like, I do wonder, do you think Ireland are going to go for a bit of a transition now?
Do I think they will have to transition from some of their older players to younger players? The thing with Ireland, and there's probably Achilles' heel, is similar to what you saw today, is there aren't many ginormous people in Ireland. Well, no, can't say that. I don't know. It's like, are they going to transition? Yes, they're going to transition because obviously you're losing a lot of older senior guys, but they've got quality in their youngsters coming through. Will they, have they peaked? I don't know about that, but you can see the kind of limitations of Ireland's model, say today, similar to when Leinster play the French teams in Europe. Sometimes the game comes down to size and big men beaten up slightly smaller men, and the French have the ability to have ginormous men and mixed with skill. They're not just meatheads, they've got skill. And the backline, and so the backline, even the backline aren't the biggest, but they're physical. They've got power to them, like you see with the speed and their ability to tackle today. Big hits. I think they had 8 dominant tackles, France to Ireland's 3. So like, you know, when teams like Ireland, they have to work so hard to, they have to get things right. Like if they score in the first half, first 50 minutes, you probably say things go differently and they have momentum and then they can play from in front. But yeah, they miss James Lowe and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the transition, I don't know if they can transition because this is the way they play, this is where they set up, and you almost need some freaky, physical young players to come through. But you know, Ireland will be Ireland, and they'll win games and beat good teams and be up there, best teams in the world, because that's the way they're set up. But you know, on their day, the big man will beat the small man.
Right. Let's explain then how the championship can be decided on Super Saturday. So, Vive la France, thank you, you've done England a favour. So, France are on top of the log on 16 points. Ireland have 14 points. France have a point difference of 106. Ireland have a points difference of 13. England are in third on 10. So, provided they do the job and get a bonus point against Italy, they will go up to second place. Right? Then, it comes down to final weekend where you need Scotland to beat France. We need Ireland. Ireland could win against Italy with a bonus point, and that won't matter actually, because as long as England get the bonus point in the next 2 weeks, then they should have enough to then win, providing France lose. If France beat Scotland, so it gets confusing. If France beats Scotland but without a bonus point, then England will probably have to score about 200 points to make sure they win on points difference.
I think this is France's title to lose. Scotland will be tough for them next week. However, if France play like they did today and don't get overconfident, they will win the tournament, I think. That's the way they've set up. It'll be interesting how England go. I fully expect them to win, hopefully with a bonus point. But just win, baby, in the worlds of Al Davis. But yeah, it'd be interesting to say France. It's France's tournament to lose, I think. Now they're in form, and that score against Italy they racked up is going to help them no end on the points difference. But we live in hope that Scotland can produce on the final weekend.
Cole, I would just like to take this opportunity because I get a lot of stick for my predictions, but I did predict France to win the tournament, England to come second, Ireland to come third, Scotland to come fourth, Italy to come fifth, and Wales to come sixth. And that could actually happen. Hopefully England come first, but that could happen. So for everyone that says about my predictions, the man could be right.
I would say picking France to win the tournament at the beginning wasn't the hardest of choices, though, was it really, Ben?
Coley will be back tomorrow on YouTube, having reviewed Scotland versus Wales. So make sure you subscribe and you'll be notified and you'll never miss any of our videos. Drop us a comment, let us know your thoughts on the game, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks very much. Cheers, Coley.